Welcome back to this week's episode of John and T Squared. I'm John Colemorgan, and I'm joined by the wonderful Tracy Arnet and the fabulous Tracy Bouras. Hello, girls. How are you?
Hello, John. Hello, Tracy. And hello to everybody.
Hi, John. Hi, Tracy. Hello, everyone. I'm another week in a winter wonderland here in Alberta, and it is just glorious again.
I'm not going to go on about how wonderful the weather is here just to make you guys jealous, but it is. It is wonderful.
What I'll do, Tracy, I will do what my husband always does, and I will look at you lovingly in your eyes and go, yes, dear.
Yeah. Well, please go on about your sunshine, because it is getting down to minus 29 this week here.
Oh, is that all? Oh, it's warming up.
Yes, it's warming up a tad, but yes, minus 29. So please, Tracy, tell us how much the sun is shining in South Africa.
I must say, I'm not going to complain too much about my English weather with your minus 29.
No.
So, girls, this week we are doing a topic that has been brought to us by a listener. Dot Johnson very kindly sent us a request to discuss, how do you keep motivated? How do you help yourself when you've lost your SewJo? What do you do? And it's a really good topic, and I'm glad we mentioned it. So, Dot, thank you very much for joining us. If anybody does have any topics, we do have topics of our own, but every now and then we may run out of an idea or two or be looking for a new thing. So please drop us a line if you've got anything we want to chat about. And I definitely am open to chatting about virtually anything. So let us know what you're thinking. So girls, talk to me. Losing your SewJo, what do you do? I personally just go out and buy tons of fabric. It's not healthy.
That's exactly what I was going to say, John.
Not healthy at all.
Well, yeah.
Definitely not helping the budget, but yeah.
Not when you're trying to get rid of your stash, John. No more buying till you get rid of that stash.
You see, the difficulty is, as a quilt shop owner, it's really hard when you lose your SewJo. So then you go out and you're like, I'm buying fabric for the shop. And you're not. You're buying it for yourself because you want to just sit there and stroke it. But yeah, I do find that buying fabric is one of my favorite things in the world to do.
That is fun. This is true.
I think every quilter goes through their sewing mojo ups and downs, and I don't want to talk about why that happens, but generally to be, what do you do when that does happen? And I think sewing with friends or getting together with your quilting buddies is definitely a great way to get that all back, because even if you go and sit and chat and even do something small, being inspired by those around you is really a great way to get your sewing mojo back, because you just see what other people are doing. And yeah, that's I also want to make a quilt. I also want to get something done. So that for me is a really good one. It's like going to a guild meeting or sewing with friends is definitely a good way to get your SewJo back.
I think that's a great idea too. That's what I've found, that sometimes when it's overwhelming or life is out of control, sometimes when I would go and meet up with my gals and I'd come away rejuvenated, and then I'd go home and clean my sewing room a bit, and that always helped too, because then I could find a little project to start on again or cut something. I find cutting out helps me get rejuvenated too.
That's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that. Because I suppose when you're cutting out, you're getting ready for the next project. Was it you who mentioned, I think, during the week we were talking about UFOs, how your friends, when they've got time, they, one of you mentioned it, when they go and cut out projects in advance. I love that idea. I really enjoy that. Yeah,
because then it sort of gets your spark going again, because you're cutting something out new that you haven't worked on, and all the ones you have going or whatever maybe are just too overwhelming, and to cut something new gives you that new release or new.
But it's also new hope and new ideas, and gives you a little bit of burst. I love that.
Yep. And sometimes it's therapeutic to cut, because you have to not think about nothing but the measurements that you're cutting. So it turns off your brain about what's going on in your life, that you can just focus and cut stuff out.
That's a very good point as well. That mindfulness of it, where you've got to focus on it, otherwise you cut it incorrectly.
And I think that's why I can't speak for everybody, but I do believe that that's where a lot of us lose our mojo, is when life gets overwhelming or too much things are going on, and it's, yeah, what gives is your time to sit and sow your for me anyways, for your creativity part of your life. That's the first thing to go, because it's such a I'm not going to say a guilty pleasure, but it's such a pleasurable time for you to sit and sew or quilt or do whatever. But when things are out of control, it's always the good that gets given up. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I think you always taught, well, I was always taught. So you always like finish your food before you can have dessert. You always have to do the bad stuff before you can enjoy the good.
Right.
And yeah, that for me was always kind of instilled, that you have to do something. You got to do the bad stuff first before you can do the stuff that's really good, or do the things that are, the things that are responsible, like that adult, that kind of thing. Whereas actually when you do the things that you love and enjoy, that gives you a little bit of motivation. You've got a new energy, a new thing, vuma, to get going, and to sit quietly with your fabrics and things that bring you joy actually help you help you face those other things. And I think we forget that. We neglect ourselves when things aren't necessarily going well. We're always looking after other people, making sure everybody else is all right first before us. So I think you're right. You do give up the creativity because it's kind of considered a pleasure. So that gets put to the back burner.
It does. I think so. And I think you're right. We're always doing something for someone else. So, and by taking those even like I'm half an hour and cutting, like it just fills your glass back up, because it's something you love, and it gives you like you say, the energy to face what's, outside your sewing room. It's like, and your space is your space, it's your, like a totally safe zone, I believe. And so when you step out of it, you're okay. I got this. I can carry on.
It's interesting you're saying this, because for me, I do most of my cutting at the studio where I work as well. So for me, I actually don't have I haven't, and it's ridiculous, I haven't had time to sit down and design my sewing room. I am beyond lucky. I have 2 sewing rooms. It's absurd. And I still haven't got furniture in either one of them, because I just haven't sat down, ordered what I wanted, looked at what I want. It's just ridiculous. And it's something that desperately needs doing. But having the work and the home fun sew environment merge so much, with it being a shop, with being most of my makes are for the shop, so I find the divide quite hard. So even today, I'm making a quilt for somebody else for a sample, and I'm just using different waddings in the different quilts. And these are quilts that I've made for myself, but now I put different waddings in them to be able to use them as a shop sample. So I don't have that divide, and I don't have that discipline to be able to say, right, that's work, this is play. And I seem to merge the two together, because whether I like it or not, it's not work in a way. In some ways, it's not work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, when you enjoy what you're doing, it is not work at all.
No.
It's 100% pleasurable.
But I will say that definitely when I've got my my residential retreats that I run, and I have to say that those, I often arrive at those feeling very bleh, because it's just been a really tough week or whatever, and I'm just not quite in the space that I want to be. But when I spend a couple of days with these women, and they're so amazing and they're so embracing, I do find that I always leave a retreat enriched and happy. And I don't know whether it's just the being with like-minded people, or whether it's just sewing and having fun, or the enormous gargantuan amount of gin and chocolate. Maybe those are the factors. But I do find that I leave there so enriched and so happy. And I have to say, the one time that I actually, in the last year, the happiest I have been was at the Quilt Festival in Cape Town, because I just have never felt so embraced by these women and the community. As a complete and utter stranger, this complete madman arrived, took over, bullied everybody into doing X, Y, and Z, greeted literally every single person that came through the door, and everybody was just amazing. It was just so enriching to have that. So I think quilt festivals and things like that definitely help.
Oh, for sure. And I think a retreat too, you don't have to, you can if you want, but you're sitting there with like-minded people, and you don't have, the outside world is not there. It is not present in the room, because you are all there for the same common bond of quilting and sewing and laughing and just having a nice time. And that's so vital to everybody.
I'm sure the gin doesn't hurt.
No,
Nor the
gin,
chocolate.
I wasn't going to bring that up. The gin helps too, but you know, that's just
Gin
an
and
extra
chocolate
added.
never go wrong. Never ever go
That's
wrong.
right.
Gin and chocolate.
Just do not operate the machine while you're eating chocolate, because the chocolate smears on your fabric, and the gin might cause you to put your finger under while the machine's running.
No, you're wrong. And you're wrong. And I'll tell you why.
Oh.
All you do is, if you undo the top of the bag, if it's a bag of chocolates, you just pour them into your face, and your fingers never touch the bag.
Oh.
That never touch the chocolate. So if you're doing like M&Ms or anything like that, you just take a small corner in the top, and you just literally, it's like a trough. You just lean back. It's like, you know, the all the American movies you see where everybody are doing, what do they call that when they do a beer bong? What is it where they're doing? They put a beer up in the air and it's got a hose, and they open the beer and then just chug all the chocolate down, or chug all the beer down. That's my sewing experience, which is probably why I'm so overweight. But the other one is, if you've got a bar of chocolate, the metal, the wrapper that it's in is there to hold the chocolate so it doesn't get on your fingers.
True.
And I learned
guess I've
this
been doing it wrong my whole life.
Because of knickknacks and Cheetos, because if knickknacks are basically Cheetos, but they're made in South Africa. But the minute you touch them, your fingers are completely and utterly orange, and everything you touch for the next week is orange. But those, again, you open the bag, you tilt your head back, and you just pour them in. It's just easy.
Well, I hope someone would know the Heimlich maneuver, because I'd be choking if I poured a bag of cheese down my throat. I can't say that about my sister, because she loves her cheesies too, but you might have to edit out her response to that.
I'm not quite sure what Tracy's sister said with it, but I agree with Tracy's sister.
Oh, I heard that. That's hilarious.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Do I have to put the expletive button on for this week's episode?
Just for that 1 second, you might have to. But no,
oh, I love it.
That would be a good commercial, though, for Cheetos or Cheesies.
Cheesy.
We should do a series of commercials of the do's and the don'ts of eating while sewing, and have a video of demonstration on how to eat chocolate and cheesies while we're sewing.
You know what we could do? We could do that as like a little video for ourselves. You could send yours, I could send mine, and we could do like a little PS public service announcement.
Exactly. And truly, if you have chocolate around when you're sewing, that is an inspiration. So, yeah.
Certainly doesn't do any harm. One thing I'm also finding as well, that if I do have a period where I'm just a bit there, I do find watching Jenny Doan helps me tremendously, because she just is so calming and she's so lovely. I just find listening to her or watching one of her videos just makes that everything just feels a lot easier, because she makes things so simple in her demonstrations. I love it.
Oh, she is so lovely. And then after you mentioned about that, was it a chain? Oh, what is it called you were busy with, John? With the
Irish chain
with a 9 bit. The Irish chain. Oh my God, I'm so bad. After you spoke about that, then I watched that video, and now I'm suddenly playing an Irish chain quilt. I mean, I didn't want to make one, but she's so lovely that I now have to make
but
one.
It's so easy, isn't it?
I know, right? And, I know. I'm very. That's maybe on the cards this weekend.
Well, I won't deny that was on my week. That was my last weekend when I did that as a shop sample, because I got some new fabrics in the shop, and I made it. But I'm warning you now, I didn't use jelly rolls. I did strips of fabric. So I took 48 strips of fabric, of background fabric, and of the coordinates. So there were 12 fabrics. So I did 4 2.5-inch strips, and then cut. What's 15 times 15?
Oh, I don't know.
225, isn't it? Yeah, so I
Something
think it's
like
200. I think it's about 225, but I then cut about 120 6.5-inch background squares. And that was where I was just mindfully sewing, cutting away, all fine, not even thinking about it. And then the next thing is I started sewing the rows together, and I miscalculated. I thought I only needed 8 sets of blocks, being 60, when in fact I needed 128 or 100 and something. Yeah, it was about 128 of them. So before I knew it, I'd made a 98-inch square quilt. And I just looked at myself and thought, you're bonkers. You're absolutely bonkers. You do not need a quilt this size. Where are you going to put it? You don't even, it's just ridiculous. But I loved it. And it was such good fun being able to do it. I loved it.
That one did come out really well, John. Yeah, I can't wait to see it quilted.
Oh, you must see what I'm doing at the minute. I'm excited. I love it.
Oh, I have seen it, and I'm very excited for you too.
Yes. Well, I'm hoping to bring it to South Africa because I'm hoping that their quilting trading company might import the product. Yay. Plant
Well, that would be great.
Now we leave it there. Now we just leave it there. We just planted the seed. Now we wait and see. Love it, love it, love it.
So going back to Sewing Mojo back, I think also finishing a quilt that's close to being done, or getting a quilt finish, like that kind of inspires you to get going onto the next one. And the other thing I find is a quick, small project that's not too taxing on the brain, can also really help get your sewing back, because you finished. I think also to know that you finished something, because sometimes when you get onto a big project that just takes a little while longer, you just think, oh, do I have to do another 120 blocks? So yeah, quick finishes to inspire you to get moving again.
Well, I think too, that's where your UFOs could come in. Like when we were talking last couple of weeks ago, when you have that UFO that has like 15-20 minutes worth of work on, those would be a quick, a good win for everything, for your UFO pile and for getting your mojo back.
That's really, I never put the two together. Well done, Tracy.
We like a double whammy there. Well done, Tracy. That's great.
It's all about the double whammies.
Is that another food analogy?
So are you two both excited about quilting at the minute? Have you got any mojo issues at the minute, or SewJo issues at the moment?
I've had sewing room withdrawals since I've been here visiting in Alberta.
Yeah, I get that.
I'm like, see things and go, oh yeah, or I want to sit and sew, and I don't have, my tools or my things. So that, but that's what a holiday's all about too. So when I go back, I have a long list of things I want to get done and do. So that's exciting.
Yeah,
what's the things you want to do? Tell us. This is exciting.
Inspire us.
just to start quilting, and just have a couple of quilts I need to finish, like on the long arm, and I've made a list and a couple I want to start. And I've always wanted to do an Irish chain, so after seeing yours, John, in the video, like it just just got me thinking and going again. So that's good.
That's really exciting. I like that.
So.
And Tracy B, what about you?
Well, I've got to say at the moment, work is pretty full on, and I always think, well, okay, today I'll get up early. I'll maybe start, doing something in the morning or in the evening, but I'm just way too exhausted. So at the moment for me, I feel like the time issue is the thing that's stopping me from getting into the quilt room. And hopefully this weekend is, I think big blocks of time are a little bit easier to get the momentum going and maybe get started, and then maybe during the week finish off the little bits and pieces. So yeah, there's 2 quilts one that I think will be quite quick to finish, sort of strip pieced, and And yeah, the Irish chain one, I'm definitely am going to get started. And I don't know, John, when I look at you sewing and then you just sew your rows together, I would never do a quilt like that. I want to see like a good section of it. So I would piece and block so I can get the full idea of what the quilt's going to look like. I want instant gratification. Not row
Okay.
by row. That's not again, I don't quilt as quick as you do. So I need to see what it's going, like where it's going before I get moving with the whole thing. I would make like only maybe a couple of blocks and then sew them together, not make all the blocks.
Oh, I'm with you now. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
One thing actually you keep raising about time, and you keep mentioning that. One thing I think is really important. What I've decided, because of running a shop and being very busy with the shop and not actually having time for myself to be able to go and sew, what I have actually done is I've consciously made the effort that I know that every other Friday I am closed and I am sewing, and I am sewing for me. I am not sewing for the shop. I am going to sew. And I have found that the minute I put it in my diary and I'm actually working on that schedule, and because it's in the diary, we do it. And I find that by doing that, that has actually freed me up a lot more. And as somebody like you who owns their own business and your life is your work a lot of the time, you need to carve out that time to be able to A, stay sane, and B, stay inspired to carry on doing your day job. Because if you don't actually have that time off where you are stopping and you are actually disconnecting from your job, you actually aren't going to be able to sustain that on a permanent basis. So for me, I have found that really therapeutic, and I found it really good and inspiring for myself, being able to have that divide and know that just for 2-3 days a month, I actually am going to be sewing on a work day, doing stuff just for me. And I found that really helping my mental health and being able to just feel a lot more excited about what I'm doing.
That's a really good idea, John. I never set time aside. It's just like, okay, I've done all the stuff that needs to be done, and then I'm going to get to sew.
But that's the thing. And as a small business owner myself, and well, your business is enormous by comparison, but it's, you look at that and you do think to yourself, actually, when did I actually prioritize myself in this process? Because we are taught as people and as business owners that work hard, keep working, raise the money, turnover must be this, turnover must be that. But before you know it, you're on this treadmill and you just don't actually stop, and you can end up getting burnout, and you need to have that break and that divide, especially as small business owners, because when you are, well, I have a staff complement of 2. I can't really claim to know much, but it's a case, it's really important to be able to just have that time off and to be able to have that perspective. Otherwise, it just doesn't seem to flow as easily.
Yeah, I agree. I for a very long time I worked ridiculous hours, and it always was about work. And only over the last sort of 3 years have I been able to create time, in the morning before work to actually, because at the end of the day I'm too tired. So yeah, at the start of the day is kind of how I would start doing some quilting and that, that kind of thing. But yeah, as I said, this last week has been interesting, and next week will be better. So yeah, maybe that'll be my one morning a week. I'll go in a little later and bunk work and do a bit some sewing.
I think as well, it's important for your own peace of mind to be able to have that break and have that stop, because I think we don't a lot of people do actually stop and say, I'm taking a mental health day, and it's just to keep your sanity going. And I think certainly in the UK, we're a lot more focused on making sure that we are okay. We aren't just driving ourselves into the abyss of whatever it's meant to be, just to kind of just stop and enjoy, because it's not all about work. It's not all about being able to do that. It's having that balance. I'm not for 1 second professing to say I have a balance, but it's just nice to know that it's, you've at least got the chance of getting there.
Well, I think the last 2 years has taught us that too, that self-care is very important. So to carve out time in the morning before you go to work, Tracy, and go in your room, that's amazing. That's really good for you, because what a great way to start your day.
It is. And actually, by the time I get to work, I'm actually in a fantastic mood. Which so I already, I'm not so grumpy. I've had the start to the day that's not like crazy hectic. racing to get through traffic. Then the traffic's also not as bad. So yeah, it really is a good way to start your day sewing and touching fabric. Like,
yeah, so there's a lot of benefits to you doing that. My friend Kathy, she's a registered nurse, and that's what she do. She get up, her husband's a farmer, so they're up at 4:30 every morning. But for about an hour and a half, she goes and sews every morning and starts her day before she gets to the hospital. And
I'm
so
sorry?
she
oh, come, John. They are
30 every morning.
yes,
What?
I know.
Why? To be fair,
Well,
I used to do that when I was on the telly. I had to drive out of my front door at 10 to 4 every morning to get to the studio for 6 a.m. And not being a morning person, that was a challenge of epic proportion. So I do understand getting up that early, but my goodness, no thank you. No.
Well, she had to be at work for 7 because that's when her shift started. But so then they'd have coffee and then she'd go and sew for about an hour and a half and then leave for work. And she said it when she didn't do it, Kathy said that it would just mess with her groove.
There's not enough coffee in the world. I will I'll get out of bed at maybe 20 to 7 at a push, and I'll be wafting in at 1 minute too.
Oh, John, you're so funny. No, so
But John, you up till all hours of the morning. So
well, exactly. I was just
that,
thinking.
of course.
Last night I fell asleep at 3:30, and I think to myself, God, getting up an hour later to go into work. No, I'm good, thank you.
Oh, no, I would not be able to function at that time. When I'm tired, I am tired and ready for bed.
Oh, you're so lucky. Yeah. So lucky. It's like my husband, he just looks at me and goes, night, night, puts his head on the pillow and starts snoring about 8 seconds later. And I'm like, how do you do that? Teach me. But it's ridiculous. You crawl into bed and then the next thing you know, you're thinking of the most ridiculous things in the entire world. It's absurd.
Oh yeah, you go to bed and you're really you're tired and you're all set, and then like you say, as soon as your head hits that pillow, your brain decides, nope, we're gonna think about everything that you need to think about. Yeah, it's crazy.
Fortunately, I do not have those sort of problems, people. Not at all.
But it is.
That's
you're
because
exactly
you have
right,
the sunshine.
It is. They've got more sunshine. That's definitely it.
Yeah,
but it is your body
agree.
just sits down and you think about every conversation you've ever had with every person you've ever met in your whole life. It's absurd. I will say that my SewJo is actually really on fire at the minute. I'm just loving doing sewing and I'm loving doing my quilting and I'm just feeling so uplifted by everything. And I do think that this month coming ahead with our plans to do our March sew along and our UFO periods, I think it's going to be really exciting to be able to have that time to just go and take stock and do everything that we want to do. I'm just really looking forward to that.
I think the other thing that can get your SewJo back is if you challenge. I mean, I did that with a friend of mine. We challenged each other. We're like, okay, you've got this to do, I've got that to do. By this date, we need to get them finished. And like every week we check in. And that for me is, when you're a competitive person, there's nothing like, getting someone else to meet the deadline and you haven't. So that's another way to get your back
really
into gear.
good. Well, I told you about that project that I did when I was learning to do quilting. And this complete stranger, she said to me that I wouldn't be able to do something. And I still have no clue what her name is. And this complete stranger on the internet told me I couldn't do something. And I was like, what did you say to me? Watch this space. And I did. I nailed it. And you just kind of get to the point where you just think, okay, it's time to grow up now. Come on, let's not do that.
And to build on that, if you have a block of the month project in your drawer or sitting there that you want, that's also a good way to get your SewJo back because you're doing one block a month. I mean, you can do more, but the goal is one a month. So that's perfect, right?
I like that idea.
It just depends how far down the non-SewJo rabbit hole you are, maybe. But that's a good way too. One block a month and you can get her done.
And I think that if you have got your SewJo already, is to be enthusiastic around your other quilting friends, and that can also help lift them up so that they want. I mean, if you're not, if you're one that's really go-getting, you're in a good sewing place. If you find that you've got a friend that's not in such a good place, again, encourage them challenge them, sew with them, create a sew day. I think that when I've said, oh, let's do a sew day, everyone's like, ooh, yeah, let's do, like, they're always keen to do something like that. So I think that's also if you are in a good space of sewing, it's a good thing to invite someone else along to join you, because they might be in a bit of a funk, and that's a good way to get them sewing again.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of sharing the love that way. I think it works really well. And I do think as well, having people in the same boat as you, it doesn't make you feel quite as alone. And I think that definitely, it's really special to have that.
And the other thing too is if say you're working on a project and you just can't, either the technique is out of your scope, or you're just having an issue with that quilt, guaranteed one of your sewing friends are going to know how to help you with it. And so that can also be beneficial to getting together with your friends too.
Great idea. Great idea. Love it, Tracy.
But I do think any time you get to spend with your friends these days, especially after the last few years, embrace it, encourage it, take it as, grab it in both hands and run with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very important.
I think that's what was missing the most in the last 2 years, was for all the sewers, all the quilters, all the crafty people, is that there was just not enough contact. So
I'm finding now, certainly with the ladies that I know, obviously some of them are a little bit older, the difference after COVID, I think, is certainly with some people, you can definitely tell people who were completely isolated, who were entirely on their own, and they didn't have support and they didn't have people around them. It's been really, really hard to see that. I hate the word deterioration, but the change in them, because it's just one of those things. I don't know whether people get that back. And I think that the lockdowns, although necessary, unnecessary, whatever camp you wish to sit in, it was very cruel to people who were alone. And I think it just highlighted for so many people that solitude. And I think crafting has been a savior for many people in that way, but it makes me sad that a lot of people haven't quite gotten out of that solitude yet, and they're not quite back into the normal swing of things, because it's habit. You know, our little group that we used to meet every week, and there were 10 or 12 of us every week, and it was lovely. Whereas now we're struggling every week to get 4 people just to pay for the room fee. And it is what it is. Life's changed. We've all moved on. Things have moved on. But it is just sad to see the lasting after effects of the lockdowns and the whole situation. I think it's really quite hard.
I think so too.
And you want to be supportive, but at the same time, you also just want to say, right, come on, you, pull yourself towards yourself. You used to enjoy it. You would love it again. Get your bum in the car. Come on, we're going to do this now. And it's hard because a lot of people don't respond well to that. And you've got to be very mindful of what works for some people and what works for others.
True.
But I think if you're enthusiastic about, like, enthusiasm is infectious. Like, I know when I talk to people who don't quilt, I mean, I get very excited and passionate because it's something that I really love. And that's, for me, if I can entice them into quilting, woohoo. But I think the enthusiasm about doing what you love is something that can spark an interest in someone who has maybe lost their little mojo. So I think that's also a good thing for us, to be in a good space and enthusiastic about our beautiful craft of quilting.
I do think as well, I've always said my tagline is always going to be, what I lack for in talent, I'll make up for with enthusiasm. Because it's so true.
I agree.
Tracy.
I really agree.
Did you see that shady comment from Tracy there?
Well, no, that's not how I meant it. Oh, don't be like such.
Love it, love it, love it.
Like such.
Oh, sorry, Tracy. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, sometimes you have to bring the mountain to them. Like, go and say, I'm coming for coffee, and bring in my machine. And then it just starts that process again. Like, in their own safety.
That is very true. I remember one of the ladies who comes on our retreat, Catherine, she had a terrible fall in her shower, and oh my God, the poor woman, she broke her ankle and both her collarbones and her arm.
Oh,
so
good Lord.
she really was a very, very poor way. But she recovered, and sort of 2-3 months later, she did the physio. She was doing fine. And we used to go to a sewing group on a Saturday, and she drives this tiny little black Mini, and it is adorable. One of the vintage Minis that she's owned since day one. And I went to go and see her. She was at the sewing group, and I said, so when are you, it was quite soon after the accident, and I said, so when are you allowed to drive again? And she said, oh no, I'm giving my car up. And I apologized for swearing in advance. I said, like, you are not. No, you're not. Why are you not driving? You've got to. You drive until they come and take your driver's license out of your cold hand. You don't give up your driving. What are you talking about? And she says, oh no, I'm too nervous to do it. I said, come. And I pitched up at her house. And I put her in the car and said, come on, we're going for a drive. And she says, no, I can't. I said, yes, you can. Get your keys. Come on. And then the bloody car broke down. It took 2 hours for the bloody people to come and start the car again. But we got it. And I took her around all these little back roads in the middle of nowhere. And she was driving away. And I said, right, we're going to have to do an emergency stop, because once you do an emergency stop, you're allowed to do the driving again. So we checked in the thing. She did her emergency stop. I nearly ricocheted off the dashboard. It was hysterical. But honestly, and then since that day, she has driven her car, and she has been so grateful for pushing her towards that, because people do lose their confidence and they get used to not driving. Yeah. And it's limiting for her life and for her not to be able to go and do stuff that she wants to do. So that I'm very glad that I did push, and I'm very glad that I did push her to do that. And maybe you're right. Maybe more of us do need to do that to get people out and about.
Yeah, sometimes it's just going for coffee and talking about it, and then getting them inspired. And yeah, there's lots of different ways.
I think as well, people have got to be willing to have that happen. And I think it's just knowing the people that you're with, and knowing that if they don't respond well, don't take it personally. It's just not for them, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's just the space they're in at the moment. And I think, if you're kind to people and do it in a kind way, they'll remember that more than, if they weren't just ready to get going. So yeah, it's a really great one, John, Tracy. Well done. Excellent. Love that.
I think certainly on there, you're bound to find something to get you back into the swing of it. And when in doubt, listen to a wonderful podcast. Share the podcast with your friends.
Good idea, John. Good idea.
I love it. But I have to say that even on the baddest day, sitting down by the sewing machine, stitching some fabric together always brings me so much joy. And I'm very, very pleased that I've got this craft. And maybe I'm having a bad day and I don't do stitching with fabric. I go and do some crochet. But I do think that working with your hands and making things, there is a lot to be said of being able to make something that's really pretty and beautiful that's been made by your hand. And even if no one else in the world thinks it's pretty and beautiful, you do. And that's all that counts.
Yeah. And it just gives it just relaxing too when you work with your hands, whether, like you say, if you're not sewing, you're crocheting or knitting, it just is relaxing.
Can you girls think of anything else?
No, I think just that let's go out and get some more people quilting, people. Yep. That's what I say.
No, I agree. I think it's one of those things that it's hard unless people are actually willing to give it a try. It's very hard to explain to people the positive impact quilting has had, certainly on my life, because most of my peers and my friends, they look at me and go, what are you on about? Because for them, it's just so foreign. Male quilters are, they're very few and far between. But it is just one of those things. But I thoroughly enjoyed. My whole life revolves around it. So I obviously love it.
Are there many crafts that do that? I wonder. Or maybe I just don't pay attention because I'm so focused on quilting. But yeah.
Well, I don't know if you've got much more room left in your life. Have you got much more room left in your life for another quilt or another project?
No, nope. I like knitting and crochet at a stretch because that's kind of how I started. But other than that, I was interested in lots of things, but I was like, no, I cannot do another. There's just so many tools, and why just not focus on one thing that brings you that much joy? And you can, get good at it. It's got so much to offer that you actually don't need anything else. Or for me, I don't need anything else.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree. So, girls, I think we're going to leave it there. This has been a really
great stuff.
I think it's been really inspiring. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do next week. Have you girls got any ideas?
Oh, I'll have to give that one some thought. John, when you're lying awake at night, you can give that some thought.
Well, next week
Maybe the idea will come
is
to me in a dream.
well, next week is the beginning of March, and we are starting our UFO accountability program. So maybe next week we can all bring to the table what it is that we're working on, what our plans are for
Yeah.
March, and then I'll be able to reveal to you all what our plans are for International Quilting Day on the 18th of March. I think we have all loosely agreed we are going to do a 24-hour sew-along. We're
That'll
going to be
be
selling
fun.
tickets. It'll be really good, and see how long we all last. We're going to be doing a 24-hour sew along. We're going to be selling tickets, and all the tickets will be sold going to the charity, the Quilters Legacy Foundation, which is the funds are to be used to help people get into quilting that can't quite afford it these days. And it's to be able to help them with various things that they may need. And it'll be quite nice to be able to get as many people involved as possible. And over the 24-hour period, you can drop in and drop out as you go. There'll be different sewing rooms around you can have different sewing rooms on the Zoom call. It'll be quite nice to be able to see how we do it. The logistics of how we get it right, I'm not quite sure, but that is loosely the plan.
Oh, I
think
like
it
the
sounds
loosely
great.
plan. Oh, I'm very excited about that.
I think it'll be really good.
Stuff.
But I think as well, having the 24-hour period will be quite good, because I think then we can encourage people from all over the world to be able to take part as well. And it's very casual, drop in, drop out, see how you go. It'll be quite fun to do. We'll see.
Yeah.
And it's a worthy cause as well.
That's a great
Excellent, John. You're a
cause.
star for organizing that.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, it might just be the three of us sitting sewing away, but we'll give it a go. And I'm okay with that.
Oh, we have so much fun anyway, so
I can't
Yeah,
wait to
that'll be
see how
fun.
Tracy. I want to teach Tracy how to eat a bag of Cheetos.
Okay, I'll have fresh Cheetos and be prepared.
Looking
Maybe
forward to it.
I'll teach my sister how to use Zoom, and she can show us because she's a pro already. So I'll see if she'll want to be involved.
Love it. And she can tell her it's for charity, so she doesn't have a choice.
Yes.
Because if she
that's
doesn't
right.
do it, that makes her a bad person.
Well, she's a saint right now, so
No, I
she's
know
not
she
a
is.
bad
She's
person,
lovely.
but we'll work on that to get her involved. That would be
Love
funny.
it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody listening, thank you so much for your time this evening. I'm John Colemorgan, and I'm going to sign off. I'm going to hand you over to the girls now, and have a great week.
Yeah. Thank you for all the laughs and giggles. It's been a pleasure to be here today again, and thank you, everyone, and goodbye, everyone, and I'll see you next week, or hear you next week. Yeah.
Thanks so much, guys. Always fun chatting to you. Had lots of laughs, and yeah, can't wait for our next podcast and chatting to all of you. Have a good week. Bye.